Well, the fact that he's wearing a mask, covering his hands, so he was ready. He did not want to leave DNA. He did not want his face recognizable. So speaks to that. Also, I find it interesting we're 10 days out.
The device did not simply lose power. It was physically removed. Roughly 30 minutes later, around 2:15 a.m.,
you probably feel like you know Savannah Guthrie because you've watched her so much. I do know Savannah Guthrie.
I really think whoever's behind this and behind the email is going to make a mistake, not utilizing the right types of technology.
A quiet Arizona neighborhood. A front door camera suddenly disconnected. An 84-year-old woman vanishes overnight. At first, investigators focused on a masked stranger seen near Nancy Guthrie's home. A possible intruder, a possible kidnapping. But as detectives worked the timeline, another detail quietly surfaced. The last confirmed person to see Nancy Guthrie alive was someone she trusted, her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni.
Fox News alert. The FBI is conducting a third search at Nancy Guthrie's home. They've just cleared the streets and have established a wider perimeter.
The latest now in our coverage of the Nancy Guthrie case, the investigation, the disappearance. At 5 p.m., we passed the deadline.
Well, a really disappointing development in the search for Nancy Guthrie. Sources telling CBS News the DNA that was collected at her Tucson home.
But this one is getting intense attention. It was taken at 2:36 a.m. That's 48 minutes after the kidnapped suspect was caught on camera at Nancy's front door.
According to investigators, Cioni drove Nancy home from dinner the night before she disappeared. He watched her walk safely inside, then he left. At least, that's what authorities say happened. But in missing person cases, the final confirmed sighting often becomes the most scrutinized moment of all. And while officials insist no suspects have been identified, rumors began circulating, claims that the investigation was turning toward the family, claims that Tommaso Cioni was becoming a prime suspect. Yet none of those claims have been confirmed by law enforcement. So what exactly do investigators know about that final night? And why does the timeline still leave so many questions unanswered? Tonight, we take a closer look at the evidence, the rumors, and the unresolved questions surrounding the man who may have been the last person to see Nancy Guthrie.
Has been identified publicly as a person of interest or a suspect. Lee Waldman joins us with a look at where the case stands now.
And speaking of DNA, we've heard reports that new evidence has been found at the scene. Can you confirm that, and what does it tell us about the potential suspect?
Something big would come of this. So far, that has not happened, at least publicly. How common are these types of operations in these investigations?
According to Fox News, hired help has been asked to give DNA swabs in the case. Now, another person who said that he may have been at Nancy Guthrie's home at some point.
Who was Nancy Guthrie? Before the speculation, before the headlines. Nancy Guthrie was simply a mother, a grandmother, and a woman known for her quiet routine. At 84 years old, she lived in the Tucson area of Arizona, surrounded by desert landscapes and suburban calm. Friends described her as structured, faith-driven, community-oriented. Every Sunday, she joined friends online for church services. Every week followed a familiar rhythm.
Natasha. Yeah, appreciate that. And meanwhile, what are they saying about cooperation with their counterparts south of the border and the likelihood that she could have been taken to Mexico? Is that something that they're seriously looking at?
But right now, we have new information breaking about the Nancy Guthrie disappearance case in Tucson, Arizona. Of course, she's the 84-year-old mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, who's been posting emotional.
We're on the third day. It doesn't make a lot of sense for somebody seeking ransom.
When we say forensic evidence, what does that include? Is it just DNA samples? Are we talking about things like surveillance footage? I mean, what is it exactly?
And like many people in their later years, routine was part of what kept life steady. But routine also means predictability. The same schedule, the same habits, the same patterns, and according to investigators, those patterns may have played a role in what happened next. Nancy was also part of a close family. Her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, is widely known as a co-anchor on NBC's Today Show. But Nancy herself kept a much lower profile. Her social media posts were simple: family gatherings, holiday photos, moments with grandchildren.
As sources say, an image from a surveillance camera of the suspect. Now you see right there in the Nancy Guthrie case.
Paula, Savannah Guthrie's husband, Michael Feldman, he took time to travel to New York City amid his mother-in-law, Nancy Guthrie's disappearance.
As the search for Nancy Guthrie enters into its third week, a source says that there is no leading theory on what led to her disappearance. Was it a burglary gone wrong or a targeted kidnapping? Still, no answers as her family is pleading for her safe return.
As to whether she's alive, absolutely. I believe she is. And the family believes she is. And my team, some 400 officers out there.
On December the 25th, 2025, just weeks before she disappeared, Nancy shared a Christmas photo online. The family wore matching pajamas. Standing beside her in that photo was her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni. At the time, it looked like an ordinary holiday memory. Looking back now, it feels like a snapshot taken just before everything changed. Saturday, January 31st, Nancy spends the evening with family. Authorities later confirm she had dinner with her daughter Annie and Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni.
Liz, first of all, just thoughts on the video update we just heard there from Savannah, and remind us where the investigation stands right now.
This guy breaking the camera may have caused all this, because from what I understand on these Nest cameras, once it breaks, it freezes. So it's not overwriting itself because Nancy Guthrie didn't have a subscription. So I thought it was just remarkable to be able to recover.
Sources tell me that those photos were taken on different days, which means that the kidnapper was at Nancy Guthrie's house.
I will start today's breakdown by looking at Tommaso Cioni, the son-in-law, the man who was the last person to see 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie alive.
Nothing unusual is reported during that dinner. No arguments, no tension, just a normal evening. But the timeline becomes crucial when the night ends. 9:30 p.m. According to Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, Tommaso Cioni drives Nancy home. He walks her to the door, and according to investigators, he makes sure she gets safely inside before leaving. That moment is important because as of now, investigators believe that may have been the last confirmed sighting of Nancy Guthrie.
It's just my duty. It's every cop's duty to stand up and be the voice for victims. With NBC reporting, there is no indication this is the result of any new evidence.
At this point, investigators not confirming the validity of the message, but regardless, the clock is still ticking. We're now going on more than 2 days since Nancy Guthrie was last seen.
At all. We've got, investigators discarding their gloves. I still do not understand why Nancy's house was not roped off.
Oh, and after that, the timeline goes dark. Overnight hours, authorities believe something may have happened between late Saturday night and early Sunday morning. Investigators later revealed that Nancy's Google Nest doorbell camera was disconnected at approximately 1:47 a.m. Why would someone disconnect a security camera? One possibility, an intruder. Another possibility, someone who knew the camera was there. But at this point, investigators were still trying to answer a basic question.
Yeah, to this day, many people online still believe Luke Daly is the abductor, is the person seen in that surveillance footage from Nancy Guthrie's home.
And I have thought of any type of reason why they could have come after me, but there's nothing, and I think that's why they didn't tell me.
Breaking news moments ago, NBC reporting that law enforcement is expected to release a surveillance photo of a potential subject in the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping.
Was Nancy taken from her home, or did something else happen? Sunday, February 1st. By noon, concern grows. Nancy fails to show up for her usual virtual church gathering. Friends attempt to reach her. Calls go unanswered. Eventually, authorities are notified. Nancy Guthrie is officially reported missing, and almost immediately, the case begins attracting national attention. As investigators arrive at Nancy's home, the situation becomes more complicated.
disconnecting and removing a device from the roof and climbing up a ladder into dense vegetation. A vehicle believed to be Nancy's towed away.
And until that's completed, and then they resubmit it to the FBI with the intermediary checking for the quality of the evidence, they won't really know anything at all.
Assault, violent crime investigation. And what I want to ask is, we know what the playbook is. Now they're making an appeal to the public to try to gather more data.
According to authorities, Nancy did not subscribe to the video storage service for her Nest cameras, which means the full footage from that night may not have been saved, but investigators were eventually able to recover still images from residual data stored in back-end systems. Those images appear to show a masked individual near the front door, dark clothing, gloves, possibly carrying a backpack. Authorities describe the individual as approximately 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches with an average build.
Savannah Guthrie's mother, blood found at the scene, and a possible ransom demand.
There are new fears this evening for the safety of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie as investigators reveal new details about what appears to have been a forced break-in.
And, all of us on this panel here, we've done a number of rollback warrants to different locations, but I've never done 6 on one location.
That will come. But right now, if they can test those gloves, they're going to test them for her DNA to see if she was touched by those gloves at any time.
And that image immediately shapes the early theory. Possible abduction, possible intruder, but the investigation remains cautious. According to officials, no suspects had been publicly identified. No arrests, just evidence being analyzed piece by piece. Meanwhile, forensic teams begin processing the home, and what they find adds another layer of mystery. Investigators discover multiple sources of DNA in and around the crime scene, but the DNA does not match Nancy.
That question is weighing heavy on people right now, because when a case starts like this, we expect modern technology to just move fast.
Then attempting to block it, then pulling a plant to obscure the view. Moments later, the feed went dark.
Are taking that live look there, and this coming after Today Show host Savannah Guthrie said her family is now offering a $1 million reward for information leading to the recovery of her mother, Nancy Guthrie.
And it does not immediately match anyone known to have been inside the home recently. According to authorities, the sample is mixed, meaning it contains genetic material from more than one person. That makes analysis more complicated. So investigators turn to a powerful tool increasingly used in modern investigations, forensic genetic genealogy. This process compares crime scene DNA to public genealogy databases to solve decades-old cold cases.
What if Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping is never solved? Seems like many of us across the country have been on pins and needles ever since we heard the frightening news.
And seeing if there are any videos that might be interesting for the police to look at and investigate further.
That Savannah, the Guthrie family, from day one, they wanted to put out the $1 million reward, but they were discouraged.
But it can take time, weeks, sometimes months, and during that waiting period, public attention turns to the timeline, specifically, the final confirmed sighting. Because whenever a person disappears, investigators often focus on one critical question. Who saw them last? According to Sheriff Chris Nanos, Tommaso Cioni might have been the last person to see Nancy Guthrie before she disappeared.
Personally, but I know she did that because people are saying, why are they spending so much money on her and so much media attention on her?
Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. They're also working to prioritize which leads to follow after receiving more than 18,000 calls in this case.
FBI search teams were seen walking roadways around Tucson and the Catalina foothills, scouring for clues in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
That statement alone doesn't imply suspicion. It simply reflects the timeline. But in many missing person cases, the final contact becomes a focal point. Investigators typically ask several questions. What time exactly did the person leave? Did anyone else see the interaction? Was there any communication afterward? And in this case, those details matter. Because Nancy was dropped off at approximately 9:30 p.m. The camera wasn't disconnected until 1:47 a.m. That's more than 4 hours later.
So, the doorbell camera outside Guthrie's home was not a Ring cam, it was a Nest cam. But they found the images that we've gotten here from what they've called as, quote unquote, residual data.
It's kind of hard to judge a trial and how a jury is taking things in the midst of that trial. Me being an investigator, anytime I've been in a trial, I would try to.
3 weeks since Nancy Guthrie was taken from her Tucson home, investigators are still searching for clues.
4 hours where Nancy was presumably alone in her home. 4 hours where nothing unusual has been publicly reported. Then suddenly, the camera goes dark. And after that moment, the trail becomes far less clear. At one point, journalist Ashley Banfield discussed the case on her podcast. During the episode, she mentioned that a law enforcement source allegedly told her Tommaso Cioni might be considered a prime suspect.
It's never fast enough for the sheriff. I want it like you. Come on, guys, let's go, let's find her. But the reality is I also know that sometimes things take time.
And really, investigators releasing what you just saw on screen there, this masked man on that doorbell footage. And really, we have not had a whole lot.
Co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, a face that tens of millions of Americans recognize every morning.
But here's the key detail. That claim has not been verified by investigators. Authorities have repeatedly stated that no suspects or persons of interest have been publicly identified. That distinction is important. Sources can sometimes describe investigative directions that are not confirmed publicly. But until law enforcement formally identifies a suspect, those claims remain unverified, and speculation can easily distort the investigation. Still, the comment intensified public curiosity. Who exactly is Tommaso Cioni?
Important new clue, DNA from several gloves and other pieces of potential evidence that's now being compared to samples taken from associates of Nancy Guthrie.
And what the FBI will do is they'll start with the realm of the possible. How many of these backpacks were sold, when they were sold?
This is a targeted kidnapping. That person didn't just show up there that day and wonder, geez, will she be here? Will she be at home?
Who is Tommaso Cioni? Tommaso Cioni is 50 years old. He is married to Nancy Guthrie's oldest daughter, Annie Guthrie. The couple has one son together. They live in Arizona, not far from Nancy's home. According to public information, Cioni moved to Arizona in 2006. Professionally, he works as a teacher. Specifically, he has taught 6th grade science and biology at Basis Oro Valley School in Tucson. Former profiles describe him as someone passionate about learning and nature. In one interview, he said he loved watching students grow from pre-teens into young adults.
In the video, you see about 10 different cars flying past the camera, speeding at speeds that they shouldn't be going that fast in a residential neighborhood.
We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Sunday marks 1 week since Nancy Guthrie was reported missing from her Tucson area home.
Collected at her Tucson home may not generate a usable profile of the suspect. The sheriff's office sent that DNA to a private lab in Florida instead of the FBI.
He also shared that if he hadn't become a teacher, he might have pursued a career as a herpetologist, a scientist who studies reptiles and amphibians. That interest reflects something else about Cioni, a fascination with nature. But teaching wasn't his only interest. Cioni is also musically inclined. He played bass and sang in a band called Early Black. The group formed in 2007 and performed locally around Tucson, the Phoenix, and Flagstaff. According to music profiles, the band recorded an album around 2009 or 2010.
Anyone involved in her disappearance. Federal agencies beyond the FBI have also assisted. Department of Homeland Security Border Patrol search and rescue units have also supported portions of the search effort.
This investigation is no longer in its initial stage. Investigators are no longer collecting unknown evidence. They are attaching evidence to specific individuals. Names now exist where there were none before.
Yeah, the guy in California, low sophistication. These other people, the basic tool is an anonymizer, but they bounce these emails all around the world.
Their style leaned toward grunge-influenced rock. For someone who now teaches middle school science, it's an unexpected creative background. But that combination, science, teacher, musician, nature enthusiast, paints a picture of someone with varied interests. And yet, none of those details explain the question investigators are still trying to answer.
The DNA of Nancy Guthrie, it could be the DNA of the abductor, or it could just be a third-party, glove that they found. Right. So, before we even start analyzing the forensic evidence or squinting at that grainy surveillance footage.
Today's show host Savannah Guthrie has announced a reward of up to $1 million for information leading to the recovery of her mother.
Oh, what happened after Nancy walked into her home that night? Once the timeline became public, online speculation began. Some people focused on the masked figure captured by recovered images. Others focused on the timeline gap. And some turned their attention to the family. That happens frequently in high-profile missing person cases, but investigators have warned repeatedly against jumping to conclusions, because speculation can quickly outrun evidence. In this case,
sources tell ABC News the FBI is preparing to turn over the house to Savannah Guthrie and her siblings, nearly a month after their mother was taken from her bed in the middle of the night.
Deal with the volume of incoming tips that they were getting a tremendous amount of tips. They thought, as I thought, this case would come to a conclusion a little quicker.
They're in a place of desperation. And we've seen that play out in some of the videos that have been released by the family, and specifically by Savannah Guthrie, someone that...
Two narratives began circulating simultaneously. One focused on the masked intruder. The other questioned whether someone close to Nancy might know more than they've said. But as of now, authorities maintain a consistent position. No suspects, no arrests. The investigation remains open.